He is supposed to be a trash character, a minor villain destined to die at the very beginning of the story. Originally, our protagonist was a player of the game who gets reincarnated after receiving his Isekai ticket from Truck-kun. Now, he finds himself at the exact point in the game where the trash character is supposed to meet his end. However, instead of following the original storyline, he suddenly finds himself being chased by the important characters and noble ladies from powerful families. To understand how our protagonist ended up in this situation, we have to go back a little further, to the middle of a dark forest where two bandits first dragged him into this mess. Slightly tense, Kai immediately goes along with whatever the men say. As the bandits prepare to sleep, they order him to stay behind and keep watch because the captives are worth a huge ransom. Unfortunately, the captives do not even have enough strength left to scream. Alone in the darkness, Kai wonders how his situation has become this ridiculous. Holding his head in frustration, he desperately tries to figure out how everything went so wrong. He remembers trying to save someone before getting hit by Truck-kun. Yet, for some impossible reason, he later wakes up in this strange world. As Kai stares at the night sky, the truth slowly sinks in. He knows this world far too well. After putting the pieces together, Kai realizes that he has somehow reincarnated inside the fantasy game he was playing just the other day. And to make matters worse, he has ended up on the villain's side. Just then, a noise coming from a nearby cart catches his attention. Our protagonist moves closer and discovers an iron cage. Inside, he freezes when he sees three girls trapped in the darkness. From his knowledge of the game's story, he knows that every villain involved in this incident is destined to be wiped out. In other words, sticking around is the same as waiting for his death sentence. Without wasting another second, Kai decides that escaping is the smartest option. He searches the area and finds a map along with some money that could help him on the road. After checking the routes, he realizes that getting away should not be too difficult. Still, before leaving, he looks back and does the one thing that will eventually lead to trouble in the future. Moving carefully and quietly, Kai approaches the iron cage again, leaving the girls shocked. He unlocks the cage and in a low voice tells the captives to escape with him. The three frightened girls stare at him in confusion. One of them looks especially sick and fragile. Suspicious of his intentions, the red-haired girl asks if he is seriously suggesting that they follow him. With a sharp glare, she accuses him of trying to trick them with some cruel joke. The white-haired girl follows up by demanding to know why they should trust him after everything that has happened. Kai falls silent for a moment, unable to come up with a good answer. Seeing his hesitation, the redhead points out that he clearly has nothing to say and declares that his little act has already failed. Thinking quickly, Kai comes up with a lie. Our protagonist claims that he secretly infiltrated the enemy group and apologizes for arriving late to rescue them. Even though the lie is completely shameless, he knows that earning their trust is more important than anything else right now. So he doubles down, confirming that he is actually a spy and that this is how he makes a living. Of course, the girls are left speechless after hearing that. Seizing the moment of their brief hesitation, Kai urgently warns them that if they get caught, he will be finished too. Unfortunately, the red-haired girl reveals that her leg has always been bad, so she cannot walk. The other girl then admits that she is completely blind. To make matters even worse, the youngest blonde girl, Remy, is unconscious and sick on the floor. Knowing all this, the girls accept their fate. They know they cannot make it out on their own. However, the fact that Kai is already willing to help them is enough to give them a little hope. Hearing this, Kai's heart grows heavy. Just as he is about to consider leaving, Remy uses the remaining strength she has and begs him for help. Because of that, our protagonist makes a split-second decision. He swears that he will save them rather than let anyone die, even if that means carrying all three girls. The red-haired girl becomes puzzled and asks what he means. Kai assures them that he knows the surrounding area and that everything will be fine. So without wasting any more time, he tells the girls to follow him. Later, Kai can be seen in the forest carrying the two weakened girls while the white-haired girl clings to him and follows behind. Normally, a healthy guy in this situation might start having some dangerous thoughts. However, Kai quickly pushes those thoughts aside and focuses entirely on escaping. Using the map he took earlier, Kai mentally traces their route. He soon spots the city of Aldea, exactly as he remembers it from the game. And if that is the case, his confidence grows. After all, he can use his knowledge of the game to his advantage. Without slowing down, though clearly exhausted, Kai eventually leads the girls to the place he has been searching for. It turns out to be a treehouse hidden deep inside the woods. Curious, the blind girl asks where they have ended up. Kai explains that this is actually a secret hideout. More specifically, one he personally designed in the game. After carefully setting the girls down for a moment, he walks over to the magically sealed door and enters the password he normally uses to access the hideout. Immediately, the door lights up with a blue glow before opening and allowing them all to enter safely. Once inside, Kai admits that he never expected this place to actually exist in the real world. He quickly lays Remy on a bed so she can rest. The red-haired girl is clearly surprised. She points out that Kai cannot possibly be an ordinary spy or agent. After all, having a hidden treehouse in such a remote location makes no sense otherwise. Kai secretly agrees with her, but brushes it off, claiming that the place is nothing special. Worried, the red-haired and white-haired girls quickly ask whether Remy will be alright. Then Kai suddenly remembers that he may have stored some useful items here. The red-haired girl assumes he is talking about food. Opening a chest, Kai admits that he does not have any food. However, what he does have are the items and gear he collected in the game, and thankfully, they are still intact. With that, he announces that he has found some medicine. But the red-haired girl immediately scolds him, explaining that an ordinary potion will never be enough to save someone in such a weakened state. However, she suddenly freezes the moment she sees the color of the medicine. In shock, she realizes that what Kai is holding is no ordinary potion. That is when he remembers just how rare these potions are. As a player, he always made sure to stock his inventory with the best items. Back in the game, this potion can cure almost anything, from injuries and poison to hunger. Not to mention, it is incredibly difficult to create. Naturally, the girls are stunned when they see Kai casually holding several vials. Kai quickly reads their expressions and realizes that, with the number of vials he has left, he could sell them and make a huge profit. Unable to believe what she is seeing, the red-haired girl wonders who Kai really is to possess something so valuable. At this point, it is obvious that her fiery hair matches her personality. Handing her a vial, Kai tells her not to ask such questions, for both their sakes. He then hands the remaining vials to the other two girls, joking that he does not have the strength to carry them himself. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl is shocked to realize that she is actually holding what she calls the legendary elixir. As for Remy, Kai moves to help her while noting that she did well to hold on for so long. The moment she drinks the elixir, its effects are immediate. Kai is clearly stunned to witness the effect in person, rather than through a game monitor. Remy finally opens her eyes and thanks him. He politely accepts her thanks, but insists that she get some more rest, even though she is already cured. When he turns toward the other two girls, he is stunned for the second time. The once blind white-haired girl is crying because she can finally see, while the red-haired girl realizes that her legs are no longer a problem. Kai tries to tease them about the reward he will receive for saving them. Instead, both girls break down in genuine tears of joy as they celebrate their individual recoveries. Kai can only let them enjoy the moment, knowing they must have suffered from their conditions for a very long time. The following morning, Kai learns that the girls were kidnapped from the city of Alda, which is 2 towns away from their current location. He lets out a sigh as he realizes that getting there will definitely take some time. True to her fiery personality, Karen becomes furious and blames both Kai and the bandits who kidnapped them. When Kai asks whether either of them can use warp or teleportation magic, Karen immediately points out that they would have escaped on their own a long time ago if they could. Kai admits that she has a fair point. He then comments that if he had possessed the game character he created, he would have been able to use teleportation. Unfortunately, the body he currently inhabits is only D rank with average stats, suggesting that its original owner was just an ordinary person. Speaking of teleportation magic, the white-haired girl suddenly remembers that only one person in history was ever able to use it. Kai simply brushes the topic aside. More importantly, he wants to know how both girls are doing. The white-haired girl admits that she is still adjusting to being able to see, but otherwise, she is fine. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl shyly admits that both of her legs are now completely fine. She then introduces herself as Karen Dior Aldi, revealing that she is a noble lady and insisting that Kai start addressing her properly. Following suit, the white-haired girl introduces herself as Nina Quarry Ansage. Kai already knows the blonde girl is Remy, but one thing becomes clear. All 3 girls are somehow connected to the aristocracy and nobility. However, that is not Kai's concern. He is far more worried about remembering their ridiculously long names. Pushing that aside, he gets to the main issue and tells them that they need to return to the city. Karen immediately asks if that means he is going to protect them. His answer leaves her shocked. She becomes worried when Kai admits that he cannot guarantee their safety. Kai explains that no matter how strong he is, there are simply things that cannot be guaranteed. In reality, he reminds himself that this is no longer a game. If he dies, there will be no respawn, and unlike before, everyone now has only one life. To make matters worse, his current stats are incredibly low. Despite that, he assures the girls that he will find a way to get them back without putting their lives in danger. Karen anxiously asks about Kai's plans. Our protagonist cannot help but comment that the girl really knows how to put him on the spot. For some reason, that remark gets a strange reaction from her. Rather than dwell on it, Kai takes out the map and begins explaining his plan properly. He points out their current location along with the place they have just escaped from. Naturally, it is only a matter of time before the bandit group starts searching for them, so taking the normal route back to the city would be too risky. That is why Kai suggests taking a different route and heading south instead of north. Once they find a carriage, they can continue their journey safely. Hearing this, Karen points out that they do not have any money. Kai calmly explains that this is not a problem. He is actually grateful that he stole some money from the bandits, and even suggests using it to get new clothes for the girls. Just then, Nina asks why he is going so far for them. She points out that he even gave them a legendary elixir. On top of that, Kai claims to be a spy, yet a real spy would normally never reveal such information to anyone. Kai is once again caught off guard by her logic. He realizes just how deep he has gotten into this lie, and at this point, there is no turning back. Because of this, he explains that he normally would not do something like this. The girls should be grateful to his master and higher-ups because he is simply following their orders. Just then, he notices Remy staring at him intently, anxiously. Kai asks when she woke up and why she did not say anything. She simply tells him that she is already awake, leaving Kai to wonder how long she has been listening. Anyway, our protagonist suggests that they wash up at the river while he uses the remaining time to further refine his plan. Hearing that, Nina tells him that she can use purification magic. If that is the case, Kai suggests that she use it on the girls while he heads to the river and cleans himself up. But Karen, being Karen, immediately points out that it is suspicious for a spy to be unable to use something as basic as purification magic. Kai quickly counters by explaining that constantly relying on magic could expose them. Hearing this for the first time, Karen finally understands his reasoning and comments that their protagonist is definitely no ordinary person. So while Nina uses her magic to clean the girls, Kai enjoys some time alone in the river. Later that night, he goes over his refined plan one more time. With everything settled, Kai puts on the armor he stored in his chest, and the group finally moves out. The next scene skips ahead 1 week later to Olda City. Kai notices the Knight Commander barking orders at his subordinates, and immediately comments that the man must have his hands full. Karen replies that it is only natural considering they managed to return to the city safely. Later, the commander steps forward to welcome the ladies back, clearly relieved that they are safe. Karen then steps forward and explains that their safe return is all thanks to our protagonist. Kai is caught off guard when the man immediately lowers his head and sincerely thanks him. Turning toward the noble young ladies, the commander tells them that an escort will be arriving shortly to take them back. Using the opportunity to strike up a conversation, Nina asks what our protagonist plans to do next. Hearing that, Kai tells her that he plans to stay in the city for a while. As usual, Karen immediately jumps in and clarifies that they mean what he plans to do afterward. She begins listing possibilities, such as reporting to his higher-ups or taking on another mission. As usual, our protagonist thinks to himself that among the girls, Karen is definitely the one who puts him on edge the most. Meanwhile, the Knight Commander watches and listens to their entire conversation as Kai comes up with a reasonable excuse for why he cannot accompany them. Inside, Kai admits that the entire exchange is exhausting and quietly hopes the escort arrives soon. Tired of the situation, he tells the girls to listen to the knight and head to their private rooms. He also emphasizes that they should not let their guard down simply because they have returned to the city. Hearing that, Karen finally agrees to let him off, while noting that he is always so cautious. Nina simply thanks him for his concern. As for Remy, she continues clinging to our protagonist as if she has no intention of leaving him. Eventually, the girls leave with the escort knights, while Kai leaves the responsibility of seeing them off to the commander. Hearing that, the commander once again lowers his head, insisting that he needs to thank Kai properly. Kai simply explains that there is no need. With that said, he excuses himself and makes his way into the city. As he leaves, the knight's subordinates step forward, curious about Kai. When they mention that Kai must be someone incredible, the knight commander immediately corrects them. According to him, our boy is not merely incredible, he is a literal monster. It turns out that the commander secretly used his appraisal skill on Kai and discovered that all the items and equipment he possesses are rare items from a level 8 dungeon. The men are shocked to hear this, but their captain is not finished. He explains that the group responsible for kidnapping the girls is no group of small-time criminals. They are actually the notorious criminal organization known as the Red Freed. Yet Kai managed to rescue the girls without receiving a single scratch. Even now, Kai remains extremely cautious and alert, despite being safely inside the city. This makes the Knight Commander conclude that Kai must be a seasoned war veteran. Meanwhile, our protagonist suddenly sneezes while they continue talking about him. The Knight Commander feels disappointed that he never got the chance to see Kai's face properly. One of his subordinates even points out that the commander did not remember to check Kai's identity. The man simply shrugs, as if questioning whether they could actually interrogate someone that monstrous. Not to mention, Kai saved the noble ladies. In his eyes, someone like Kai definitely deserves special treatment. Speaking of special treatment, one of the knights suddenly remembers the girls mentioning the legendary elixir Kai possessed. His companion immediately confirms it. Their commander is shocked. The subordinate then asks if he did not notice that the ladies were suddenly cured and completely restored. Not only that, but he personally heard Karen mention that our protagonist claims he only keeps the good stuff. Hearing this, the commander immediately orders them to report the information to the higher-ups. Seeing their confusion, he repeated the order, sending the knight scrambling to comply. The knight then explains that Karen is the daughter of the sovereign lord, and also the daughter of a duke, making her part of the highest-ranking nobility. Meanwhile, Nina's house has an ancestral connection to the Holy Church. In other words, she may eventually become the next priestess. As for Remy, her family is extremely wealthy because her father leads numerous commercial and merchant guilds. To put it simply, every one of the girls comes from an extremely influential family. Yet, our protagonist treats them so casually, even handing over a legendary elixir without expecting a single thing in return. Not to mention, he is a warrior capable of conquering a level 8 dungeon. Putting all the pieces together, the Knight Commander finally reaches a conclusion. Our protagonist must be a member of Verthar, the secret organization operating directly under the command of the imperial capital. The next scene shifts to our protagonist exploring the city. As expected, the streets look exactly the same as they did when he played the game. He can even see the Adventurers and Treasure Hunters Guild. Kai admits he would love to look around some more, but the constant stares make him feel like a monkey in a zoo. He tries talking to a man, but the man becomes shocked and immediately avoids him. Kai assumes all of this is happening because of the armor he is wearing. Initially, he thought it was normal, since that was how things worked in the game, but now that he thinks about it, he realizes he is wearing equipment from a high-ranked dungeon. Naturally, something like that would attract plenty of attention. Just thinking about it makes him feel exhausted, so he decides to head to the nearest inn. However, he is suddenly startled. Looking down, Kai finds a little girl clinging to his leg while telling him that he looks amazing. Before he can respond, the scene shifts to the ducal house. Inside, Karen's father expresses his relief that his daughter has returned safely, admitting that he was worried sick about her. Karen immediately tells her father to calm down. She then watches speechlessly as he continues, only for him to mention that her legs were healed after she took the legendary elixir. Karen confidently confirms that her crippled legs are completely healed. Hearing this, her father admits that even with all his power, influence, and resources, he was unable to find the potion. Knowing just how rare and valuable the elixir is, Karen tells her father that despite this, our protagonist handed it to her so casually as if he were giving her candy. Not only that, he didn't even expect anything in return. Hearing this, her father looks at the report before asking his daughter whether Kai revealed his identity as a spy. That question makes Karen realize something important. Her father doesn't know our protagonist, meaning he wasn't the one who sent Kai to save them. Her father admits that this is true. After all, if he knew someone as remarkable as Kai, he would have already obtained the legendary elixir a long time ago. This causes Karen to remember our protagonist's previous remark at the treehouse. She tells her father that Kai claimed he was merely following an order from the higher-ups, so she assumed her father was the one who sent him. Hearing this, the Duke assumes Kai only said that to reassure them that he would get them home safely. However, Karen points out that Nina and Remy wouldn't know about such an order either. Kai claims to be a secret agent who infiltrated the Red Freed, but they still don't know his true objective. He could have been assigned to gather information, or he could have been sent specifically to save them. When her father says he hopes our protagonist was sent specifically to capture her, Karen misunderstands him and immediately shouts that they should be grateful to Kai instead of being suspicious of him. Her father quickly clarifies that he meant the situation would be difficult if our protagonist was a spy whose identity had been exposed. If that were the case, Kai would likely be punished. Hearing this, Karen asks her father if he has figured out which secret organization our protagonist belongs to. The Duke explains that he received a report about 2 days ago stating that the Red Freed members responsible for the kidnapping had been arrested. After hearing the full details of the report, Karen remembers that Kai specifically told them to head south from their location. He had predicted that the bandits would search for them to the north, where they had originally come from. In simple terms, it is almost as if Kai already knew what would happen and had made specific arrangements beforehand. This makes her father slam the document in his hand onto the table. Based on everything his daughter has just told him, he claims he can roughly guess Kai's secret identity. Karen is shocked when her father suggests that our protagonist is likely a member of Verthar. As previously mentioned, Verthar is a secret organization that operates directly under the imperial capital. Its members consist of extraordinary individuals, the best of the best and the elites among elites. For Kai to be operating independently, it can only mean that he holds a very high rank within Verthar. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Karen's father warns her to keep everything that happened a secret for now. They will stick to the lie that he was the one who ordered our protagonist to save them. Seeing how serious her father is, Karen agrees. Of course, after learning all this, the Duke wants to repay Kai even more. He immediately suggests sending someone to find him, but they must do so without raising suspicion. Karen heads off to get Leafia and have her handle the task. Left alone, the Duke admits that he might be asking for too much just to speak with Kai, but at the very least he wants to meet our protagonist in person and thank him for saving his daughter. Not to mention, if Kai really is a high-ranking member of Verthar, then he likely wouldn't face any serious punishment. Surprisingly, the Duke isn't the only one thinking this way. Remy's parents and Nina's parents are thinking the same thing. Each of them wants to establish a connection with Kai under the guise of personally thanking him. Meanwhile, the man of the hour is completely clueless and busy enjoying his steak. The innkeeper sits with him, and the two chat like they've been friends for years. Remembering the previous day, the innkeeper admits that he was initially intimidated by Kai's black armor. Unlike the other adventurers, however, Kai turns out to be surprisingly friendly. He isn't like those bastards who constantly show off and pick fights. In the middle of their conversation, a man enters the inn. The man is a worker from the ducal house, and he immediately asks the innkeeper if he has seen a man wearing black armor. Both Kai and the innkeeper freeze. The man immediately turns toward Kai. Desperate to avoid attention, Kai gestures for the man not to reveal his identity. Seeing this, the innkeeper points out how ridiculous the situation sounds, especially since the man is clearly a worker from the Duke's mansion. The worker asks again if anyone has seen Kai. At this point, Kai is practically begging the innkeeper to help him. He finally breathes a sigh of relief when the innkeeper tells the man that they have no idea what he is talking about. The moment the worker leaves, the innkeeper turns to Kai and asks what is going on. Unfortunately, he doesn't have to wait long for an answer. The same same situation happens again when a woman from the Holy Church enters the inn looking for Kai. Once again, Kai desperately begs the shocked innkeeper to lie on his behalf. Left with no choice, the innkeeper explains that, unfortunately, they haven't seen the person the woman is looking for. Predictably, it isn't even 5 minutes later when a knight from Remy's household and a representative from the Treasure Merchant Guild enter the inn searching for our protagonist. At this point, Kai is practically banging his head against the table as he begs the innkeeper to lie for him once again. After being told that they haven't seen our protagonist, the knight thanks them and decides to search elsewhere. Having lied to 3 powerful families in a single day, the innkeeper is naturally sweating with anxiety as he turns toward Kai. Ironically, Kai is sweating for the exact same reason, clutching his head. The innkeeper demands to know what his bro did to make the big 3 start looking for him. And yes, he means the big 3. Kai admits that he has no idea. All he knows is that he must have messed up somehow without realizing it. The innkeeper immediately shouts that now isn't the time to joke around, and demands that Kai tell him what is going on. However, Kai is far too scared and stunned to think straight. Later that night, Karen's older sister checks on her leg. Karen assures her that she isn't making anything up, and that her leg is genuinely fine. Nonetheless, Karen thanks her big sister for always looking after her. In response, her sister admits that she feels happy knowing Karen's leg is finally fine, but she is really going to miss their daily rehabilitation routine. Changing the topic, Karen wonders how they still haven't managed to find our protagonist when he is wearing such conspicuous armor. Her sister admits that with the way things are going, it will be difficult for them to personally thank him. Hearing this, Karen suspects that our protagonist is deliberately making himself difficult to find. That's when her older sister reveals that their father told her everything. If that's the case, Karen assumes she already knows about the legendary elixir. She asks whether Kai is being held responsible for using it on her. Her sister explains that, for now, all they can do is hope everything gets handled quietly. Slightly annoyed by the situation, Karen blames Kai for the trouble. After all, if he hadn't treated the legendary elixir like it was nothing more than one of his personal belongings, none of this would have happened. In the end, she can only hope he doesn't face any serious consequences, especially if the elixir actually belongs to Verthar. Seeing how worried her sister is, Karen's older sister can't help but tease her. Karen immediately retorts, annoyed at being teased, while her sister explains in the same playful tone that it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Karen simply pouts in annoyance. Shifting the conversation, her sister mentions that she has already heard about our protagonist from Polka and Marie, and both of them had wonderful things to say about Kai. She also explains that she heard similar things from Nina and Remy. Both girls apparently want to personally thank Kai. Hearing this, Karen admits that among all of them, she is probably the one who thinks about Kai the most. Her older sister simply chuckles and tells her little sister not to get worked up. Karen quickly insists that she isn't, and the sibling banter continues. Meanwhile, Kai eventually tells the innkeeper everything that happened after hearing the whole story. The innkeeper explains that it will be extremely difficult for Kai to keep hiding in the city. Rumors about him are already spreading everywhere. Kai tries to argue that anyone could fit the description people are discussing. Unfortunately, the innkeeper disagrees, pointing out that Kai stands out far too much. Hearing this, Kai begins wondering what kind of punishment he will face if he gets caught. The innkeeper admits that he has no idea, but Kai becomes even more anxious when the man mentions that the lightest punishment could be a permanent ban from the city. Since the big 3 are involved, the situation is obviously far from simple. The innkeeper points out that he has already done enough by helping Kai, but before the guy leaves, he offers one final piece of advice. Apparently, there is already a bounty of more than 3 million on Kai, along with another reward being offered for information about his whereabouts. Hearing this, Kai is shocked and immediately asks why the innkeeper hasn't sold him out. The man simply explains that it is already too late to consider doing that. If there is one thing he can advise Kai, it is that he shouldn't change inns right now. Doing so would only attract even more attention. Kai interprets the man's words as meaning that he isn't important enough to be worth worrying about. The innkeeper playfully agrees with him. Nonetheless, Kai decides that he might as well enjoy the city while he still has the chance before eventually leaving. The innkeeper supports the idea and wishes him a great time. Later, Kai enjoys exploring the city while thinking that he might as well make the most of his remaining time here. After all, if he eventually gets caught and kicked out, at least he will have experienced the place properly. And that is what eventually leads him to the clock tower. As a player, Kai had seen this very tower countless times in the game. Now that he is actually inside the game world, he decides to experience it for himself. The only downside is that the entrance fee is ridiculously expensive. Nonetheless, Kai pays the fee and begins climbing the tower. When he finally reaches the top floor, Kai is momentarily stunned. A striking red-haired woman is already standing there, peacefully enjoying the view. Just then she notices him and turns in his direction. Kai quickly realizes she has noticed him and casually greets her. The woman, who is likely Karen's older sister, responds in the same relaxed manner. The atmosphere becomes silent. Kai remembers that, according to the game's setting, there is a rumor about a player meeting a mysterious character inside this very tower. Even though he isn't completely sure that this woman is that character, Kai knows better than to let his guard down. Just like that, the two continue sightseeing in silence. After a while, the red-haired woman speaks. She comments that the view is both peaceful and beautiful, making it the perfect place to clear one's head. Kai agrees. She then asks what brought him to the tower. Kai simply replies that he came for the same reason she did. His answer seems to catch her interest. Suddenly, the conversation shifts. The woman asks whether Kai knows anything about the man in black armor. Kai immediately explains that he doesn't know anything about him, only that people have been talking about the man a lot lately. The woman agrees, but adds that she is personally looking for him. Curious, Kai asks if the reason is because the man did something wrong. She calmly explains that this isn't the case, but unfortunately, she cannot reveal the specifics. Kai doesn't press her any further. He is already satisfied knowing that they aren't looking for him because he did something wrong. Unfortunately, at that moment, the red-haired woman points out that her escort carriage has arrived. Seeing that she is about to leave, Kai decides to ask her one last thing. He tells her that she will eventually make some progress in finding the man she is looking for. The woman thanks him for his concern before slightly lowering her head as a farewell. Kai watches as she leaves. Naturally, he can't help but wonder about the identity of the mysterious red-haired woman. As expected, the red-haired lady turns out to be Karen's older sister, Lifia, and Karen has come personally to pick her up. It turns out that both girls went out specifically to look for our protagonist. Naturally, Lifia teases Karen, noting that her little sister only thinks of her as an afterthought. Nonetheless, Lifia enters the carriage. Once inside, Karen admits that wearing a mask while searching for Kai is a little embarrassing. However, Lifia is simply happy that she came to pick her up. Speaking of which, Lifia suddenly remembers bumping into someone at the clock tower. Karen finds this suspicious and asks if she is certain that the person cannot spread rumors about their meeting. Lifia replies that she is certain. She was on guard the entire time, and besides, the man she ran into did not seem like that kind of person. She goes on to explain how polite Kai was. He even spoke to her casually instead of treating her like a noble lady. Nonetheless, Lifia remembers asking him about the man in black armor. The stranger admits that he has no idea who she is talking about. Hearing this, Karen thinks it will be impossible to make any progress. According to their father, Kai must have already left the city. However, Lifia thinks that is unlikely. If he had actually left, the city guards would have notified them. That remark suddenly makes Lifia remember what Kai said about expecting to see some progress. Shocked, Karen immediately asks what kind of person her sister met at the tower. Lifia carefully describes our protagonist as a tourist. But more importantly, she mentions that the man has a scar. That detail immediately catches Karen's attention. When she asks if the scar is located near his left eye, Lifia thinks about it for a moment before confirming. Without wasting any time, Karen orders their driver to head back to the clock tower at full speed. Of course, Lifia demands to know what has gotten into her little sister. Karen immediately tells her that if what she suspects is correct, they may have finally found him. This leads Lifia to realize that the man she met at the clock tower must be the very same person they have been searching for. Her little sister confirms it, noting that the scar on his face is actually a secret known only to her and their father. So, the moment the carriage finally reaches the clock tower, both girls rush inside and head straight to the top floor, with Karen taking the lead. Unfortunately, the moment they arrive, they discover that they are a little too late. There is no one there. The next scene takes us to the city's treasure hunters and adventurers guild. Inside, we see the branch manager, Garag, venting his frustration over his overwhelming workload and the complete lack of leads regarding our protagonist. 3 days earlier, the man received a report from the knight commander stationed at the gate on the day Kai arrived with the noble ladies. The report explains that the commander suspects Kai is affiliated with Verthar. It also describes how Kai saved the noble ladies from the Red Free criminal group and assisted his comrades in capturing the criminals. Garag explains that the kidnapping of the noble ladies was top secret and had never been made public. Knowing how vital Alda City is to the imperial capital, it is no wonder Verthar became involved. He remembers warning the members of the guild not to make contact with our protagonist. On that very same day, he learned from his wife that his daughter had gone missing. Surprisingly, the little girl happened to be the same one who ran into Kai while he was exploring the city. Eventually, Kai brought Garag's daughter back to his wife, and that was how the man learned about the entire incident. Although he is overwhelmed with work, Garag is grateful to our protagonist. More importantly, he desperately wishes he could return to the imperial capital and escape this mountain of paperwork. At that moment, his secretary enters and reports that they have an emergency. Garag is about to reprimand her for entering without knocking, when she immediately informs him that our protagonist is currently inside the guild. Hearing that, the man feels like his day has just become much worse. He wonders aloud if he can ever catch a break. Meanwhile, our boy is standing at the front desk while the hunters and adventurers whisper behind him. At that moment, the guild branch manager appears and respectfully welcomes him. Seeing this, the group of hunters almost bursts into laughter. They quickly begin discussing the situation, quietly wondering why the branch manager is being so polite to our protagonist. Hearing them, Garag furiously glares at the group and wonders if they are all idiots for failing to understand the situation. Turning back to Kai, he nervously asks what business brought him to the guild. Kai simply replies that he came for an observation tour. Garag looks confused, causing our protagonist to wonder if observation tours are not allowed. Trying to stay calm, the manager immediately shakes his head. In his mind, however, Gerag believes our protagonist is actually conducting reconnaissance under the guise of an observation tour. Yet, when he looks at Kai's carefree demeanor, another thought crosses his mind. Perhaps Kai already knows that the guild has information about him and has decided that there is no point in trying to deceive them. However, Gerag realizes that there is something else. Kai is simply on a completely different level. Back in his prime, the manager trained hard and eventually made a name for himself. Still, he was never scouted by Verthar. In other words, what he is looking at now is the embodiment of a level he could never reach. For the first time, Gerag finally understands what it means to face someone standing far beyond his own limits. Putting those thoughts aside, he invites Kai to his office since he came for an observation tour. Our protagonist sees no problem with that arrangement. And just like that, the man leads the way. Seeing this, the hunters in the lobby cannot help but grow curious. A girl in one of the groups wonders about Kai, noting that he is leaving way too many openings, almost as if his entire guard is down. A guy in the group thinks Kai is doing it intentionally, planning to crush anyone foolish enough to challenge him. Another hunter adds that they should be grateful the branch manager warned them ahead of time. Otherwise, some idiot might already be boarding a one-way ticket to the afterlife. After all, our protagonist's gaze alone suggests that he has seen and experienced things in dungeons and battles that they cannot even begin to imagine. The guy from before agrees that they are obviously no match for Kai. This makes the green-haired guy wonder just how strong Kai is compared to an S-rank monster. And just like that, the chain of misunderstandings continues. Kai is placed in an increasingly incredible position with every passing moment, while he remains completely clueless about what everyone thinks of him. The next chapter opens with Kai leaving the guild. He bids farewell to the manager, who tells him he is welcome to come back any time. However, Kai thinks the exact opposite. He has no intention of ever returning to a place like the guild. The reason he came here in the first place was to avoid the people actively searching for him. Besides, the guild was supposed to be a place where he could keep a low profile. Yet the piercing gazes from the hunters and adventurers make him want to stay away from such a place altogether. Not to mention, in the original game, the guild manager was supposed to be rude. Kai finds it puzzling that the man suddenly changed his attitude and became much friendlier toward him. Well, all this special treatment is expected, but Kai has no idea why, because he is completely unaware of the rumors surrounding him. Kai decides to do a little sightseeing and removes his armor. Just then, a carriage suddenly stops right in front of him. Karen immediately opens the door, noting that she has finally found him. It is only now that our protagonist fully realizes she is actually a noble and the daughter of a duke after noticing the crest on the carriage. Meanwhile, Karen snaps him out of his thoughts, complaining that she has been looking everywhere for him and asking where he has been hiding. Trying to calm her down, Kai explains that he has been staying at an inn the entire time. A little irritated, Karen demands to know why she couldn't find him. The moment Kai reveals that he was the one who asked the innkeeper not to say anything, she shouts at him. However, in the next moment she falls silent, probably realizing that she is overreacting. Regardless, she simply shrugs and admits that this is something only he could do. As the two continue talking, Leafia steps out of the carriage. She comes to ask what Karen is doing, but Kai is stunned when he sees her. She formally introduces herself as Leafia Dior Aldi, while our protagonist realizes that she is the same girl he met at the clock tower. Leafia also takes the opportunity to express her gratitude, but Kai simply tells her that it was nothing. Just then, she asks if he has some free time. Kai replies by asking what will happen if he says yes. Karen immediately explains that they want him to meet their father because he is dying to personally thank him. When both girls don't get the reaction they expect, they freeze for a moment. In Kai's thoughts, he notes that even if he saved the Duke's daughter, he could still get executed for something as simple as disrespecting a noble. Meanwhile, Leafia and Karen exchange knowing looks. Karen immediately grabs him by the arm before he can escape. Leafia seizes his other arm and insists that he ride with them in their comfortable carriage. Before our protagonist can even form a response, he finds himself inside the carriage with both girls smiling at him, clearly having achieved exactly what they wanted. Meanwhile, Kai feels as if he has been taken into custody. Anyway, Leafia appreciates him for coming and gives a long explanation about how he helped their family save face. Kai simply nods slightly, clearly not understanding a single thing. She says, Karen then mirrors her sister's formal tone and is about to ask him something. However, Kai immediately points out that it is creepy for her to act so formal. Hearing his remark, Karen calls him rude. Our protagonist even teases her, noting that he prefers her usual reaction and asking what she wants. This is when she brings up the legendary elixir. Since our protagonist used a large amount of it, she anxiously hopes that he didn't get into trouble or get scolded for using it on them. Kai is taken aback by the word scolded. Needless to say, he explains that the potions actually belong to him, meaning there is no way he can get into trouble for giving them away. Of course, both sisters are momentarily stunned by this revelation. Completely misunderstanding the situation, Karen offers to help him in any way she can to repay something so precious. Her sister joins in as well, telling our protagonist that he can literally ask them for anything. Kai, on the other hand, can only wonder what these girls are even thinking. Left with no choice, he thinks of a way to steer the conversation. With that, he He carefully and gently explains that he doesn't regret his choice and is actually happy that the potion was put to good use. Rather than worrying about him, Karen should simply enjoy herself. He ends by telling both girls that his problems are his own and that he will solve them himself. Just like that, our protagonist easily rizzes both sisters. At this point, it wouldn't be impossible for the two girls to start competing over him anyway. Karen finally calms down while her sister thanks our protagonist. Kai, on the other hand, is relieved that things are finally back to normal. However, he suddenly remembers that he has a request for the two of them. When they ask what kind of request he wants to make, Kai tells them that when he meets their father, the Duke, if he happens to act rude, they should step in and help him. Both girls don't understand what he means. What shocks them even more is when Kai says that helping him will count as repayment for the legendary elixir. Karen immediately asks if he is right in the head. That is when Kai reveals that he is nobody, a commoner, so naturally he is anxious about facing nobility. Not to mention he is about to meet the Duke, the highest-ranking noble of them all. Hearing that both sisters exchange looks before quietly discussing the matter, their voices barely above a whisper. Lifia notes that even if our protagonist is trying to hide something, she wonders if this isn't just a half-assed excuse. Karen agrees, pointing out that the excuse is far too weak to cover up his real intentions. Nonetheless, the girls agree to help him. However, Karen believes there is no way their father will get angry with Kai, considering that he is the one who saved her, even if he accidentally acts rude. Lifia shares the same sentiment, which makes Kai relax a little. Anyway, when Karen asks if he plans to remain in his armor, Kai thinks it would be rude not to take it off. However, Karen immediately clarifies that she didn't mean it that way. She only wanted to know whether he found the armor uncomfortable. Just then, her big sister unexpectedly chimes in with a smile, openly expressing that she would like to see Kai's face. Karen immediately points out that it is rude. Meanwhile, Kai freezes, completely caught off guard by Lifia's beautiful smile. Lifia smiles as she thinks to herself that Kai is completely different from the adventurers she has met before. He is a sincere person, although somewhat difficult to read. Now, she finally understands why her little sister has taken such a liking to him. Normally, the more experienced adventurers and hunters become, the more arrogant they tend to be. As a result, they naturally flaunt their status and presence wherever they go. Kai, on the other hand, remains humble despite his fame. Lifia thinks to herself that she is so indebted to him that she does not even have the right to hold her head up in front of him, yet Kai never once takes advantage of that fact. She continues observing their conversation, and as expected, she notices her little sister's constant reactions to Kai's jabs and remarks. Lifia cannot believe someone like Kai is actually a member of the Verthar organization and still claims to be nervous about meeting her father. She quickly concludes that he is only saying all of this to tease Karen, especially since he understands her so well. As daughters of a duke, Lifia explains, they often have to deal with nobles. However, because of their age difference, Karen has constantly been treated differently. While other nobles try to form connections through Lifia, Karen is often left out completely. So, seeing her little sister genuinely happy brings a smile to Lifia's face. She admits that she also wanted to meet Kai herself, but Karen was clearly the one who wanted to see him the most. After all, Kai had not only ridden in their carriage for the sake of protecting their father's reputation, but he had also saved Karen and healed her injured leg with a legendary elixir. Yet, despite knowing how valuable that elixir was, valuable enough to potentially build villages and even a castle, Kai had simply brushed off the reward and asked for a simple favor instead. The more Lifia thinks about it, the more she sees Kai as an incredible person. And just like that, she casually drops the question of whether there is a way for her to continue being involved with Kai. Because of this, she asks how long he plans to stay in the city. She asks because she can personally arrange a place for Kai to stay for the rest of his time there. Our protagonist admits that the city is nice and that he might stay for a while, depending entirely on his mood. Hearing this, Lifia misunderstands his words. She assumes he means that Kai will stay if a mission involving helping or saving people comes up. Once again, she thinks to herself that, just like her little sister said, Kai really is a selfless person. Meanwhile, our boy is casually rizzing the girl without even realizing it. Eventually, they finally arrive at the ducal house. The moment the carriage door opens, they are greeted by servants and maids who welcome them to the estate. Kai is slightly stunned. He wonders what is going on. With a smile, Lifia explains that they are doing this out of respect for him. Acting like a gentleman, Kai helps Lifia down from the carriage while wondering if all of this is not a little too much for a commoner like him. However, Lifia shakes her head. She explains that the decision was unanimous. If anyone has a problem with the way they treat Kai simply because he is a commoner, she will personally handle it. Kai immediately gets the message. In his mind, he becomes more convinced than ever that he is in serious trouble. Still, he helps Karen down from the carriage. Just then, the head maid and the captain of the guards step forward to welcome Kai. The head maid immediately informs him that the lord and madam are waiting for him inside. Hearing this, Karen bids him farewell and thanks him for escorting them back to the mansion. Kai immediately realizes they are parting ways. Karen explains that he is about to discuss important matters with their parents, so it would be rude for them to remain physically present during the conversation. However, Leafia assures him that they will be in the next room. If anything happens, she swears she will personally step in. Kai agrees on the surface, but secretly thinks it would be much better if both girls stayed with him. Turning toward the guard captain, he hands over his weapon. He casually mentions that he would appreciate it if the man could hold on to it for him. The guard captain looks surprised and asks if Kai is sure. Karen immediately jumps in, commenting that the sword has been with Kai ever since he saved them. She suspects that it must be precious to him. Still, she reassures him that he does not need to worry. They trust him enough not to do anything foolish during a closed-door conversation with their father. Despite that, Kai explains that it would be disrespectful to bring a weapon into someone else's home. Not to mention, it is the guard's duty to remain strict and vigilant. Then he casually drops the bombshell. He is actually much stronger without his sword. Everyone, including the sisters, is shocked to hear this. The guard captain completely misunderstands his words and immediately swears that he will take perfect care of the sword. Kai appreciates the man's sincerity while secretly affirming that he was not joking. He really is stronger without his sword. Unlike the overpowered character he created as a player, Kai unfortunately learned after his reincarnation that character skills have certain requirements. Because of that, he cannot properly use some of the skills associated with the sword, making the weapon far less useful to him than expected. At the same time, he realizes that his skills have greatly increased his proficiency in hand-to-hand combat. In other words, handing over his sword is not a problem. His real concern is what comes next. He has to face the Duke. And so, Kai finally heads inside while silently praying that everything goes smoothly. One of the legendary swords is known as the Black Sword Dullahan. This is a sword that will never chip, no matter how powerful the strike. The only downside is that its luck stat constantly fluctuates. So, when Kai hands the sword over to the knight and enters the mansion, the door has barely shut behind him when Karen eagerly rushes toward the guard. Her eyes sparkle as she stares at the sword. Both her big sister and the guard are caught by surprise when she asks to see it. The knight unsheathes the sword and examines it carefully. He admits that it is exceptionally well crafted before inspecting its other qualities. Karen then excitedly wonders if the guard can tell what kind of fighting style Kai uses just by observing his sword. The knight nods and briefly explains that Kai must be an agility-type fighter rather than someone who overwhelms his opponents with brute strength. Hearing this, Karen notes that swordsmen like Kai must be extremely troublesome to deal with. Regardless, she decides to give the sword a try while the knight guides her on how to hold it properly. However, the moment Karen takes hold of the sword, she immediately realizes that something is wrong. Both the guard and Leafia are shocked when Karen suddenly shouts that the sword is heavy. The next moment, the sword slips, cutting through the pavement with ease. Seeing this, all three of them are left stunned. None of them can understand what just happened. Karen immediately decides to return the sword, and the knight agrees without much thought. However, he is surprised that the sword has not even chipped despite cutting through the pavement. He concludes that armor would be completely useless against someone wielding the black sword. This falls within his expectations since Kai is from Verthar. Putting the knight's thoughts aside, Leafia informs him that she and her sister will report the incident themselves. And that is how the two sisters find themselves waiting in a room to see their parents. From the other side of the room, both girls can overhear their parents speaking with Kai. Because of this, they realize from their father's tone why he wanted to meet Kai alone. Just since their father is a duke, he would never want anyone to see him lowering his head, as doing so could cause others to look down on him. Interrupting Leafia's thoughts, Karen tells her that she cannot face both their parents. She never expected Kai to make them bow like this. Leafia, on the other hand, studies her little sister's expression for a moment. After a brief hesitation, she asks if now is really the time for Karen to be depressed and worried. She then brings up the matter of Karen cutting the pavement. When Leafia mentions that Karen will be the one explaining it herself, the girl is shocked. Karen comments that it seems she is only good at causing trouble. Still, she cannot help but complain, blaming everything on the sword's sharpness. Unfortunately, what is done. All she can do now is focus on making things right and behaving better in the future. Hearing this, Leafia reminds her of what Kai told her back in the carriage on the way to the estate. He had told Karen to live her life to her heart's content. This catches her little sister by surprise. Karen smiles when her big sister insists that now is not the time to be depressed. As the two continue discussing how much Kai has helped Karen, they suddenly pause when they overhear their parents speaking with Kai once again. This causes Karen to wonder why Kai is so fixated on refusing a reward. Leafia thinks that someone like Kai is simply acting according to his nature. However, Karen refuses to believe that an ordinary person would ever refuse a reward, especially one offered by their father, the Duke. Her sister agrees. A reward from a Duke is incredibly attractive. It could include things such as receiving a title, owning land, or even being granted an entire estate. Not to mention, Kai could potentially be recommended to any noble daughter he wanted. Basically, almost anything a person could imagine could be granted to him. Thinking about this, Leafia hopes she can get a proper look at Kai's face since she did not get a good chance to see him at the clock tower. However, she is shocked when Karen immediately tells her that she does not get to see him. Karen points out that her big sister can be quite obsessed and warns that eventually Leafia might try to keep Kai for herself. Leafia is stunned that Karen would even think such a thing about her. If that is the case, Karen tells her that if Leafia comes clean, she will tell her more about Kai besides his appearance. At this rate, it is safe to say that both sisters are slowly becoming rivals. Their awkward stares immediately shift the atmosphere of the room. Eventually, Leafia tells her little sister that she has no such thoughts, and was simply curious. Karen replies that if Leafia says so, then she herself does not want Leafia to see Kai. And just like that, the sibling banter continues. Meanwhile, Kai is sitting inside a room alone with both girls' parents. Both the Duke and Duchess share the same thought. They both feel intimidated by Kai's overwhelming aura, noting that his very presence seems to depict someone far more formidable than they expected. During Kai's private conversation with the Duke, the man still cannot understand what is happening or why Kai is being so considerate. Our protagonist approaches them with the same humility they have shown him, even though they are the ones naturally indebted to him. Karen's father firmly believes there is no reason for Kai to act this way. Surely Kai already knows that, given his current situation, he has every right to ask for anything he wants. As for the Duke and his wife, they are naturally responsible for accepting whatever he asks without question. Not to mention Kai is from Verthar, which means he is directly connected to the Emperor. As a Duke and an imperial subject, this gives them even more reason to satisfy whatever he wants. And just like that, Kai simply sits there while the man continues to overthink the situation. At some point, the Duke wonders if Kai is testing them, as though he wants to see how the Duke will treat someone like him. However, Kai's intimidating presence and unreadable expression make it difficult to figure out what he is thinking. Knowing this, the Duke fears that failing to satisfy Kai could lead to a bad reputation for both himself and his family. This puts the poor Duke on edge as he desperately tries to find a way to handle the situation. After an entire section of internal monologue, the man decides that he should at least be grateful. After all, he was the one who wanted to meet Kai in the first place. Since he cannot come up with anything else, he admits that it is a little embarrassing, but he would really like to make a proposal. Hearing this, Kai immediately tells him that it is entirely up to him. In response, the Duchess insists that they are the ones who should be honored. Matching her tone, the Duke raises 3 fingers, indicating that they will express their gratitude with 3 things. Kai cannot believe the man is offering him a villa, a reward, and their backing. Both the Duke and his wife lower their heads, hoping he accepts. In the Duke's mind, however, this is the best he can offer, and he believes it will most likely be enough. From his perspective, the villa will serve as Kai's base of operations. As for the money and their backing, he simply sees them as a way for the Duke's family to express their loyalty to the capital and the Imperial Emperor. Kai has no idea about the Duke's true intentions, but he accepts anyway. Seizing the opportunity, the Duke offers to help him by having his daughters guide him around the villa. Kai responds positively, noting that the Duke is too kind, while the man simply tells him that he understands. Turning to his wife, the Duke insists that she take our protagonist to meet their daughters. Watching them leave together, the man cannot help but smile. The moment the door closes, however, it becomes obvious that the Duke has been trying his best to keep his composure. On the other side, Kai wears a similar expression as he explains to the 2 sisters that his meeting with their parents was nerve-wracking. Karen immediately says that she does not believe him. Kai points out that she cannot know that because she cannot even see his face since he is wearing armor. Leafia chimes in, insisting that at least now he can relax, which Kai agrees with. That aside, Karen wonders aloud if Kai should not at least act a little happier. Her comment leaves him confused. She then clarifies, explaining that Kai is not showing any reaction despite receiving such a generous gift from her father. Hearing this, Kai crosses his arms before revealing that he is actually happy. After all, he was running out of money. If he were alone, he would already be doing a happy dance and celebrating. Seeing him remain silent, Leafia admits that it may not be her place to say this, but she wants to know if he is truly satisfied with his reward. Kai is left confused by the question. He does not understand how a villa and money could possibly not be enough, so Kai tells both sisters that there are some things they would not understand even if he explained them. He adds that he hopes they are not worried. He has received a villa as a reward after all. The girls, however, exchange puzzled looks. Both sisters explain that it is not an issue, and Karen even points out that their family owns several villas. She tells him that it is not ideal for him to live alone and that it would be difficult for him to manage the entire estate by himself. Her big sister agrees and adds her own opinion. From their explanation, Kai realizes that a villa is not simply a house where one person lives. Karen points out that this is precisely why it is called a villa in the first place. Thinking about it, Kai concludes that nobles really are different. Shifting back to the important topic, Karen demands to know whether he plans to have someone live with him in the villa. Hearing that, Kai admits that he plans to live alone for the time being while using the villa as his base of operations. Now the conversation shifts toward his relationships. The sisters find it difficult to believe that someone like Kai would remain single, and not take a mistress despite his status. Leafia even bluntly asks if he has any love interest. Kai is caught by surprise and quickly explains that it is not like that. Seeing his reaction, Karen whispers to her sister that our protagonist is probably trying to say he simply has not found a girl who matches his taste. Kai can only wonder aloud what the girl is even thinking. Regardless, he invites both sisters to visit his villa anytime. Karen and her big sister are surprised and ask if he is really sure. Kai reminds them that he has already arranged for them to have a spare key. He thinks to himself that if the villa is really as big as both girls describe, he will have more than enough space to live alone. Meanwhile, both girls become incredibly excited and immediately begin discussing their plans to visit him. The next chapter opens at Kai's villa. Both sisters take him on a tour of the mansion, hoping he likes it. Leafia reminds him that the villa is a token of their family's appreciation. After seeing everything, Kai admits that the villa is quite luxurious. Hearing that, Karen immediately points out his tone while speaking to her big sister. Kai quickly tells her that it is a separate matter. Nonetheless, he invites both sisters to his private study. Although the mansion was given to him by their family, Kai hopes both girls can treat the place like their own. He then invites them to sit. Karen immediately becomes suspicious. Kai is surprised when she claims that she isn't tired. He realizes she thinks he is being considerate because of her legs, especially after all the walking they have done. Kai immediately tells her that kids shouldn't push themselves too hard. She fires back, insisting that she isn't a child. In response, Kai simply tells her not to overdo it. In his mind, however, he is solely worried about getting into trouble if he is responsible for overexerting the Duke's daughter. Misunderstanding the situation as usual, Leafia simply smiles at him. Now, trying to tease the little girl, Kai insists that she sit on the sofa, or perhaps she prefers sitting on something hard. Of course, he is talking about his armor. Between his armor and a soft sofa, Kai thinks the choice is obvious. But to his absolute disbelief, Karen actually sits on his legs. Kai immediately demands to know what Karen is doing. She playfully reminds him that she is only doing what he instructed. Leaning back against him, she even comments that it feels really comfortable. Seeing this, Leafia can't help but comment about the two of them. When Karen tells her that she isn't happy about the situation, Leafia immediately points out that she never said anything about being unhappy. That makes Karen realize she is being teased by her sister. Anyway, Karen turns to Kai and wonders aloud why he is still wearing his armor. Since this is his house, he should naturally be comfortable. Kai thinks about it but decides against removing it. The reason is simple. He doesn't want to awkwardly reveal his face to Leafia and make her discover that he is the same man she met at the clock tower. Deciding to change the topic, Kai suddenly pats Karen on the head. She is completely shocked. A moment later, she blushes furiously. Embarrassed, she and our protagonist begin bickering as she insists that she doesn't like being patted on the head. Meanwhile, Leafia simply watches the entire exchange, looking speechless. Suddenly, Kai mentions something that makes Leafia ask what he means. He explains that he appreciates the Duke assigning his daughters to guide him, but this type of work would naturally be assigned to a male worker. Both girls understand what Kai means. However, Leafia explains that her father isn't the kind of person who trusts people blindly. He isn't a man without a plan. He knows exactly what he is doing, and he knows that Kai is a man worth trusting. Hearing that, Kai pats Karen on the head again, much to her annoyance while commenting that he understands. He concludes that the Duke's judgment of people's personalities must have come from his many experiences dealing with different kinds of people. Aside from their father, Karen tells him that there is no way they wouldn't trust him. Kai nods, but at that moment, Leafia suddenly invites him to dinner. He immediately declines. Kai explains that he is kind of busy and both girls understand. Thinking about meeting the Duke once again, Kai immediately refuses the idea. Knowing he can't simply say that, he quickly makes up an excuse on the spot. Poor Karen was really looking forward to meeting him again before he leaves, but her sister simply tells her that it can't be helped. Because of this, Karen tells him that if he ever leaves the city, he must make sure to visit their house first. Kai is surprised by this, but he agrees regardless. Besides, he hasn't seen Nina and Remy yet, and he knows both girls' families will probably be looking for him. Just as he is thinking about both girls, he notices Karen staring at something, or more specifically, looking at someone. Apparently, Leafia is gesturing something to her little sister. Karen, on the other hand, simply frowns. Kai watches, as Karen continuously shakes her head while he remains utterly speechless and confused. Out of curiosity, he asks what both sisters are doing. Leafia quickly replies that it is nothing, but to her shock, Karen reveals that her big sister instructed her to remove Kai's helmet. Finding this interesting, Kai comments that he didn't expect that. Leafia becomes embarrassed, and promises to teach Karen a lesson later. Their sibling banter continues. Leafia insists that her sister stop disturbing Kai by continuously sitting on his lap. In response, Karen makes Kai wrap his arm around her while insisting that if her big sister is jealous, she should just say so. Leafia tries to say something but nothing comes out. For a moment, Kai wonders if he is imagining things. When Kai tells Leafia that she shouldn't be doing something like this, both sisters are taken aback. Karen, on the other hand, narrows her gaze with slight annoyance and demands to know if Kai just rejected her sister. Kai immediately shakes his head. From his perspective, someone like Karen's sister is already close to the age of getting married. In his mind, she must definitely be betrothed to someone. Karen finally understands his assumption, while her sister confirms that she has received many marriage proposals. However, she explains that she is still single. Kai didn't expect that. Karen explains that the other parties are the problem. It turns out that the guys interested in her sister are all serious at first. Eventually, however, they embarrass themselves and decide to call everything off. She even adds that her sister is really soft-hearted, almost like a child. She always tries her best, but all the guys are simply too weak and timid. Hearing all this makes Leafia extremely embarrassed. To confirm and demonstrate her theory, Karen whispers to Kai and tells him to try tapping the sofa. Kai is obviously confused as she insists that he will understand what she means. Reluctantly, he does so. In the next moment, Leafia stands from her seat and literally sits next to him. Kai is obviously stunned. Karen proudly explains that this is exactly what she was talking about. As if that wasn't enough, Leafia even reaches out and holds Kai's hand. Kai panics, wondering what he can possibly do in this situation. Meanwhile, Karen simply insists that they continue talking. Surprisingly enough, she also reveals that this is the first time she has ever seen her big sister act like this. While some guys are dying of thirst, our protagonist is drowning. Nonetheless, Kai tells them that they have been a great help. Hearing this, Leafia smiles and replies that it has been their pleasure spending time with him. She then explains that he will receive their family crest as a token of their appreciation. Since the design is quite complex, it will take a few days to finish. Once it is ready, they plan to visit him again and use the opportunity to discuss matters concerning his mansion and offer their assistance. Kai sees both sisters out of the mansion and walks them to their carriage. Before they leave, he takes the opportunity to tease Karen, insisting that she should head home quickly so her parents do not worry about her. Hearing this, Karen reacts as usual and insists that they leave already. Meanwhile, Leafia waves at Kai until the carriage finally departs. The moment both girls leave, Kai lets out a sigh of relief. Now he can finally take off his helmet, which feels incredibly refreshing. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, the two sisters begin discussing Kai. Leafia admits that she likes the way Kai calls her little sister by her name instead of referring to her as young miss. Karen, on the other hand, shyly admits that she likes it too. As their conversation continues, Karen suddenly realizes why her sister wanted to stay at Kai's mansion a little longer. Leafia probably wanted the chance to see his face. Leafia agrees, revealing that she wanted to confirm whether Kai is really the person she saw at the clock tower. Seeing the expression on her sister's face, Karen tells her not to worry because she can draw a picture of Kai for her once they get home. Leafia appreciates the offer but jokingly points out that Karen is lacking in the art department. Most of her drawings are so confusing that Leafia can barely tell what they are supposed to be. Karen immediately snaps back, pointing out that Leafia is actually an even worse artist than she is. However, in the next moment, Karen suddenly freezes and stops talking. Leafia wonders what she said that caused her little sister to suddenly become silent. Following Karen's gaze, Leafia eventually turns around, and at that exact moment she happens to see Kai taking off his helmet. She finally confirms his identity, but the moment she sees his handsome appearance, Leafia freezes as well. Unknowingly, Kai has completely caught her off guard. Karen notices her sister standing there frozen and begins wondering why Leafia is now the one who has stopped moving. Still staring at Kai's handsome appearance, an idea suddenly forms in Leafia's mind, causing a small smile to appear on her face. She comments on the coincidence. Hearing this, Karen asks if this means Kai is actually the same man she saw at the clock tower. Leafia replies that she is certain. Still on the same topic, she begins wondering whether it is really another coincidence that she happened to meet Kai at the clock tower. Karen, on the other hand, does not understand what she means. As far as she knows, no one besides her sister even knows how much she loves visiting that place. This makes Leafia wonder aloud if Kai somehow already knows about it. Perhaps even Karen's visit to the clock tower is something Kai had already anticipated. Karen immediately asks if that means Kai has secretly been looking after her. Leafia thinks about it for a moment before admitting that there is a possibility, and once again she reaches the same conclusion. Kai is truly a good person. Not only did he provide the legendary elixir that healed Karen's leg, but she also remembers his conversation with Karen and how he insisted that she focus on enjoying her own life instead of worrying about his problems. Just like their father, Leafia's thoughts begin leading her toward a completely different conclusion about Kai. In her mind, someone capable of possessing such incredible strength, generosity, and foresight must surely be a real powerhouse. Meanwhile, the man of the hour has absolutely no idea what is happening. Back inside the carriage, Leafia soon finds herself thinking about Kai again. A slight blush appears on her face as she thinks about what a nice guy he is. Karen notices her sister's expression. Leafia, meanwhile, secretly thinks about how she cannot wait to see Kai again. She is already looking forward to their next meeting. Her reaction is so obvious that Karen cannot help but point it out. Her big sister looks exactly like someone who has just developed a crush. Leafia immediately makes an excuse, claiming that Kai cares a lot about Karen, so it is only natural for her to want to get closer to him. Karen becomes speechless and falls into deep thought. Ironically, both sisters arrive at the same conclusion. They begin wondering how their father will react if they tell him how they feel about Kai. On the other side of the city, the poor Duke keeps sneezing without knowing that his daughters are currently talking about him. Meanwhile, Kai goes to visit his friend, the innkeeper, Since they have not seen each other for a while, the man assumes that Kai is planning to leave the city. Hearing this, Kai simply tells him that just because he is leaving the inn does not mean he will stop coming back to eat. The innkeeper listens as Kai praises the food, admitting that everything served at the inn is really great. Their conversation eventually shifts to where Kai is currently staying. The innkeeper offers to help him find a place, mentioning that he has several connections that could be useful. Hearing this, Kai replies that he already owns a house. The innkeeper is naturally taken by surprise. After all, Kai has barely been in the city for any length of time, yet he already owns a house. Eventually, Kai explains everything that happened, including how the Duke gave him a villa. He even expresses his relief that the Duke simply wanted to thank him, revealing that he had been worried for nothing. The innkeeper is left completely shocked. He explains that it is a huge deal for the Duke to give someone a villa. He further tells Kai that the number of villas and properties a person owns is a symbol of their power and status. Basically, someone who does not own any land or property is considered a nobody. Because of this, the innkeeper concludes that the Duke might have given Kai the villa as a way to build a connection with him. Kai falls silent. The innkeeper then demands to know who Kai really is. Recovering quickly, Kai simply shrugs and says that he is just a normal guy. The innkeeper clearly does not believe him. Before the conversation can go any further, Kai suddenly places a huge sack of coins on the table. Naturally, the innkeeper immediately wonders what the money is for. Kai explains that it is his way of thanking the man for helping him hide earlier. However, the innkeeper insists that Kai does not need to reward him with money for something like that. The two of them go back and forth for a while. Eventually, the innkeeper reluctantly accepts the money, while telling Kai that he genuinely enjoyed having him stay at the inn. With that, Kai decides to leave. As he puts on his helmet, the innkeeper hopes that they can still meet from time to time. Kai bids him farewell, admitting that he is looking forward to it as well. Moments after Kai leaves, the innkeeper immediately grabs the sack after making sure no one is watching. He opens it. The moment he sees what is inside, his eyes widen in shock. Clearly, the man has never seen this much gold in his entire life. The storyline moves forward, and by now, the three great powers in the city are already known. One of those three great powers is the Holy Church. Inside the church, Nina is holding her big sister and looking at her with curiosity. She asks if this is really what her sister looks like. In response, Maria asks if Nina is surprised, because it is almost like she is staring at her own reflection. A little fed up, Maria asks how many times they have already had this conversation. Nina awkwardly admits that this is already the 7th time. She also quickly denies Maria's accusation that she is doing it on purpose. Nonetheless, Maria suddenly sits down, causing Nina to remind her to mind her manners. Ignoring her little sister, Maria even crosses her legs in her nun's outfit. Nina immediately insists that she stop because it ruins her aesthetics. Hearing this, Maria casually insists that it is fine as long as they are alone and no one else is around to see them. She then adds that she is actually great at covering things up, so her little sister does not need to worry. However, that particular comment is not taken seriously, especially when Maria admits that she is only joking. Nina becomes slightly annoyed and tells her sister to stop joking around. Maria, meanwhile, notes that ever since Nina regained her sight, she has been acting much more proper. When Nina insists that she is simply stating the facts, Maria argues that nothing bad will happen if they relax once in a while. The two sisters continue going back and forth, with Nina pointing out that this is simply how Maria lives her everyday life. Throughout their conversation, Maria secretly admits to herself that things have become much more fun since her sister regained her sight. Before that, Nina always seemed quiet and isolated, but now she has become much more lively. Nina suddenly pauses in the middle of her sentence when Maria brings up Kai. Maria still cannot understand how he managed to get his hands on a legendary elixir and use it on her sister for free. After thinking about it, she concludes that Kai must be an amazing person. Nina shyly admits that it is true. She even points out that Kai's amazing personality seems to match his appearance perfectly, adding that he seems like exactly the type of guy her sister would like. Maria immediately sees through her comment. She points out that Nina's words make it sound like Kai is also her type. Nina becomes embarrassed and quickly explains that she has only just regained her sight and does not really have many preferences yet. Hearing this, Maria tells her that she is not so sure about that. She then strongly suggests that her sister should stop aiming for Kai, especially considering their age difference. Not to mention, Kai is a member of the Verthar, which means he already has plenty of girls competing for his attention and chasing after him. When Nina wonders if Maria's warning is solely because of their age, her sister immediately teases her for getting carried away. At that moment, a woman dressed in a nun's outfit enters the room and calls out to the two young ladies. Nina becomes speechless as Maria effortlessly flips her attitude and switches back to her proper composure as if nothing happened. Nonetheless, both sisters are summoned to perform their duties, and while the two sisters carry out their responsibilities, both secretly hope that they will get another chance to meet Kai. 3 days later, Maria can be seen looking completely exhausted as she complains about how tired she is. Just then, Lifia appears and asks if she is slacking off. Maria is normally shocked to see her, but she quickly explains that she is only taking a break. Lifia gives her a suspicious stare, clearly not buying the excuse. Anyways, Maria quickly asks what Leafia is doing here without a scheduled appointment. Leafia reminds her that she does not need an appointment to visit the backyard. The two girls begin laughing before Maria offers her a seat. Once they are seated, Maria starts by asking if Leafia came with her little sister. Hearing this, Leafia explains that the girl is currently with Nina. Maria then realizes that Leafia's visit must have something to do with our protagonist. Leafia confirms that they have seen Kai and offers their thanks. She adds that she also came to deliver something to Maria's parents. Hearing that, Maria thinks this will finally calm her little sister down, since she has been constantly insisting on seeing Kai. Unsurprisingly, Leafia notes that Karen is pretty much the same. She adds that it is good to see someone else spoiling her for a change instead of always doing it herself. When Maria wonders what she means, Leafia explains that Kai allowed Karen to sit on his lap. Maria immediately understands and realizes that Karen and Kai must be really close. Thinking about this makes her smile as she comments that Kai must have a way of drawing people toward him. She is a little speechless when Leafia confirms it, saying that words cannot even describe it. Maria calls that a bold statement, so Leafia tells her that she will understand once she meets Kai in person. Shifting the topic once again, Maria asks what kind of reward Kai received from her father. When Leafia refuses to reveal the specifics, Maria insists that she tell her, even if she only gives her a vague idea. The reason is simple. As one of the major families, Maria needs to make sure that whatever they offer Kai does not fall short of what the Duke has already given him. Eventually, Leafia gives in, though she warns Maria that she will tell on her if anyone catches wind of this conversation. Kai received a villa, along with a huge amount of gold coins. Lastly, he received their family crest, which symbolizes her father's personal backing. Hearing all three things, Maria is shocked. She explains that although Kai saved Karen and gave her the legendary elixir, she still wonders if they have given him too much. Leafia admits that she feels the same way, but there is nothing they can do about it. Maria is even more taken aback when she realizes that this is what they were willing to offer. After all, Kai had insisted that he wanted nothing when they first met. Thinking that it is impossible, Maria insists that a person like that cannot even exist. Hearing this, Leafia reminds her that she has not met Kai in person, so she has no idea what he is actually like. Seeing Leafia blush as she says this, Maria begins to believe that she is telling the truth. Then, pretending to imitate her old man, Leafia explains that her father thinks the same way. In fact, he even admitted that he is no match for someone like Kai. Maria cannot believe that the Duke would actually say something like that. Leafia explains that Maria should have seen how her father keeps planning and thinking about his next meeting with Kai. As if he is trying to solve world hunger, Maria thinks that if that is really the case, then her family needs to be prepared. Their conversation continues, and Leafia concludes that aside from being a kind person, Kai is also incredibly strong. On top of that, he is from Verthar. For those reasons, both girls agree that Kai is someone who should never be made into an enemy. Hearing Leafia bring up Verthar, Maria realizes that things could become problematic, even if they already have an idea of what to offer Kai. When Leafia asks her to elaborate, Maria explains that Verthar naturally holds more power than the Big Three. Since they do not know how the organization operates, they are simply not in a position to know what Kai truly wants. However, Leafia then reveals something interesting. Among the 3 rewards Kai received from her father, he seemed happiest about the money. Maria does not understand. In fact, she openly comments that it does not make sense. In her view, money is something a person can naturally obtain by working. As for the crest, it symbolizes the Duke's permanent backing, which is far more valuable than money. However, since Kai is supposedly a member of Verthar, he already has the backing of the Emperor. Because of that, it would not be strange for him to prefer money over the Duke's personal backing. Sharing her own opinion, Leafia thinks that with the money, Kai will be able to help more people. She imagines a situation where someone is in trouble. Of course, that person would be happy if Kai gave them a mansion, but they would probably be even happier if he gave them money instead. After all, in Kai's case, his gear and equipment are extremely rare and must be expensive to maintain. Understanding her point, Maria decides that she will offer Kai even more money when he comes. However, she soon becomes embarrassed when Leafia tells her that Kai is exactly the type of guy she would like, considering that her little sister has already told her as much. Leafia had already expected that from Nina. Maria, however, insists that Leafia should not tease her, especially considering Kai's aura. She then adds that Leafia is only bringing this up because she has also taken quite a liking to Kai. This immediately makes Leafia feel embarrassed. While the two continue their conversation, the scene shifts to Karen and Nina on the other side. The two girls are obviously discussing their meeting with Kai again. They also talk about how difficult it was to find him when he was wearing something so conspicuous. Thinking about this, Nina wonders if Kai perhaps got scolded for using the legendary elixir. Hearing that, Karen immediately warns her not to feel guilty. On top of that, she tells Nina what Kai said to her in the carriage about how she should focus on enjoying herself instead of worrying about his problems. Nina is surprised to hear that coming from Kai. Karen insists that even if he disobeyed his superiors, they should not make a big deal out of it. Besides, with Kai's supposed talent, there is no way Verthar would simply allow him to leave the organization. Nina admits that when Karen puts it that way, it really does make sense. Both girls agree that Kai seems like the kind of person who would compromise himself just to help others. Anyways, Nina wants to know how long Kai will be staying in the city. Karen claims that he will be staying for a while to handle something. She believes that this is probably the reason he turned down their invitation to dinner the other day. Hearing that, Nina immediately imagines Kai going out every night like Batman, secretly saving people. When Karen entertains the possibility, Nina thinks our protagonist is really cool. Because of this, Karen decides to let her in on a little secret. It turns out she has spotted the inn that Kai regularly visits, leading her to believe that Kai has a fondness for commoner food. The moment Nina hears the name of the inn, she suddenly stands up. The movement is so sudden that Karen immediately asks what she is doing. In response, Nina vaguely mentions something about planning Kai's reward. Before Karen can ask anything else, Nina runs off, leaving her completely confused. Meanwhile, Kai is walking down the street while humming a tune. Eventually, he reaches his destination, which turns out to be the inn he loves to visit. Unbeknownst to him, Nina is already inside, asking the innkeeper if he is certain that a certain someone usually comes by around this time to eat. Outside, Kai is puzzled as he overhears the innkeeper struggling to respond. However, the female guard accompanying Nina immediately demands that he answer. Panicking, the man has no choice but to reveal the truth. From everything Kai overhears, it is obvious that the poor man is being interrogated. Kai finds the whole thing exhausting, especially since he only came here to eat. Meanwhile, Nina continues questioning the innkeeper, and whenever he hesitates to answer, the same thing happens again. Eventually, the man goes as far as revealing his menu, the kind of food Kai likes, and even what Kai ordered the previous day. Standing awkwardly outside, Kai notes that this is the first time he has ever seen the innkeeper act this way. At first, he considers leaving, but knowing how much the man has helped him in the past, Kai decides to step in. Just like that, Kai enters the inn, hoping that the group questioning the innkeeper will stop the moment a customer walks in. The moment he passes them and heads toward a seat, Kai immediately notices that the conversation stops and the entire room falls silent. Confused, he wonders why everyone suddenly went quiet. Just then, Nina tells her guard to wait. The female guard gives a slight nod, acknowledging the order. Meanwhile, Kai looks toward the innkeeper, hoping the man can help him out just as he did moments ago. Understanding the look, the innkeeper immediately asks Kai what he wants while pretending that they have never met before. Kai is about to place his order when Nina interrupts him. Turning toward her, Kai is initially taken by surprise. He does not recognize her at first. Seeing him remain silent, Nina asks if he does not recognize her. It is only after hearing her voice that Kai finally realizes who she is. Naturally, he asks how she has been doing. Nina replies that she is doing fine, much like him. The innkeeper listens to their conversation, as Kai takes responsibility for the situation. After all, he specifically told the man not to give anyone information about him. Realizing this, Nina's guard immediately apologizes for her earlier actions. However, the innkeeper is simply relieved and insists that there is no trouble. Turning back to Nina, our protagonist admits that he did not recognize her at first, before commenting on her outfit. Hearing that, Nina asks whether he thinks it suits her. Kai says that he thinks it suits her well and adds that it will look even better once she becomes an adult. Thanks to that comment, Kai finally realizes that Nina is affiliated with the Holy Church. Trying to continue the conversation, he asks about her eyes. Nina immediately moves closer to him and excitedly explains that it is all thanks to him. Kai gently pushes the overly excited girl back a little. Then, he makes a few hand gestures and Nina responds to them accordingly. In the end, Kai confirms that she can truly see. Still overwhelmed with gratitude, Nina explains that because of him, she can once again see the faces of her family and the people who care about her after such a long time. However, she immediately apologizes for becoming too emotional. In response, Kai tells her to raise her head and repeats the exact same advice he previously gave Karen in the carriage. Hearing those words for the second time, Nina promises to do her best. At that exact moment, the innkeeper enters carrying the food, placing it on the table. Nina immediately thanks him. Kai notices the unusually large serving and becomes curious. Nina reveals that she is the one who ordered it. She admits that she already knows the large servings are meant for adults, but she was simply curious and wanted to try it herself. Shyly, she adds that this is actually the reason she came to the inn in the first place. Kai does not bother asking any further questions, which comes as a relief to Nina. Both Nina and her guard are surprised when Kai casually offers to help Nina finish her food if she cannot eat it all. Hearing that, Nina simply thanks him, while her guard suddenly becomes invested in the food as well. When Kai tells them that they do not need to wait for his order before eating, the two ladies offer a simple prayer before digging in. Predictably, the moment they take their first bite, both of them realize that the food is incredibly good. Kai enjoys their reaction and comments that the food really is great here. But at that moment, the innkeeper brings Kai his drink. Kai comments on the way the man sets it down. The innkeeper responds with slight annoyance, explaining that Kai is the reason he has been through so much trouble lately, so he hopes the young man understands. Seeing their interaction, Nina thinks aloud that the two men must be quite close. Kai agrees, indicating that they are on good terms. The The innkeeper then tells Nina that this is only possible because Kai asked him to keep his stays and visits a secret. But the moment the words leave his mouth, his expression turns pale. He suddenly realizes that he has just spoken casually to Nina. Watching the man desperately try to backtrack, Kai immediately turns toward Nina's guard, silently hoping she can let it slide. The female guard admits that there is no problem as long as Nina herself does not mind. As for Nina, she sees no problem with it at all. In fact, she would actually prefer the two men to speak to her casually as well. Hearing this, the innkeeper is obviously uncomfortable with the idea. Seeing him act so nervous, Kai cannot help but chuckle. The innkeeper becomes slightly irritated by his reaction. Suddenly, Nina speaks, causing both men to stop and turn their attention toward her. She tells Kai that since her time is limited, she would like to discuss a date and time when she can visit him properly and thank him. Kai is surprised to hear that. On the other hand, the innkeeper realizes that it is time for him to step out of the conversation. Meanwhile, Kai asks Nina to clarify whether she means she wants him to visit the Grand Cathedral. Nina frantically waves her hands as she explains that she was actually referring to her family coming to his estate. Now, Kai wants to know how she discovered that information. His tone makes Nina immediately apologize, thinking she may have offended him. In reality, Kai is simply concerned about how she discovered that he already has an estate. Regardless, he brushes it off, noting that he can be busy sometimes, but he should be able to make time for them. Nina tells him that she is already aware of that and suggests coming over during the weekend. When Kai asks who will be coming, Nina reveals that her entire family plans to visit. Kai never expected her to bring the entire church just to see him. Now Nina is stunned when Kai asks her for a favor. He explains that he would prefer it if her parents did not come along. Kai makes it clear that he is not looking for a formal greeting and would rather avoid drawing unnecessary attention. His friend, who has been listening to the conversation, tells Kai to speak for himself, considering that he is wearing conspicuous armor that is doing the exact opposite of helping him avoid attention. Regardless, Kai tells Nina that her parents must already be busy with church matters, so it would not be fair to make them come all the way just to see him. Eventually, the matter is settled, and Nina decides to come with only her sister. Kai then hopes that Nina's guard will report everything to Nina's parents. Hearing that, the woman explains that this was her intention from the start. Kai tells her that he really appreciates it. Nothing more is discussed after that, and Nina returns her attention to her food. Once she finishes eating, she and her guard decide to leave. Nina makes it clear that she is really looking forward to the day they will meet again. Kai gives a slight nod, indicating that he feels the same way. The moment the two ladies leave, Kai lets out a tired sigh. He feels like he has just stepped on a landmine. The innkeeper wonders why Kai is the one looking exhausted. He serves Kai his meal while explaining that, if anything, Nina and her people should be the ones worried. After all, someone of Kai's caliber just spoke to them so casually. Kai thinks the man is misunderstanding the situation. He explains that he is just an ordinary person, so he does not expect any special treatment. But the innkeeper clearly does not believe him. Instead, he explains that the way Kai treats him is simply convenient, because he has nothing to worry about when dealing with him. Kai takes off his helmet and calls the man a lifesaver. In the end, the two promise not to disrespect each other. Just then, Kai remembers Nina's guard. He comments that the woman was really scary. The innkeeper explains that guards from the church are elites, so that kind of behavior is expected. Kai understands before revealing that he overheard their earlier conversation. This makes the innkeeper slightly furious. Apparently, this means Kai stayed outside and listened through 90% of the interrogation session. Kai immediately apologizes for not stepping in sooner. However, when the innkeeper explains that the female guard was actually quite nice to him, Kai does not understand. The innkeeper clarifies that she was not really flexing her authority. She was simply making a request for him to disclose the information because the time they had outside was limited. In his mind, she would do anything to avoid wasting Nina's time. The innkeeper realizes that this is simply how she expresses her loyalty to Nina. Hearing that, Kai thinks it must be really tough for the guard. However, the innkeeper explains that this is common whenever it has to do with serving people in power. He thinks someone like Kai should already be familiar with something like this. After all, Kai even spoke to the guard as if she were an ordinary person, telling her things like how she should report to her superiors. Hearing that, Kai explains that he simply said what felt right at the moment, because he is clueless when it comes to noble etiquette. The innkeeper freezes for a moment, then his expression changes to shock. If what Kai says is true, it means Kai is in a position where he does not need to care about that kind of etiquette. Basically, he must be on a completely different and much higher level than even the church's influence. Kai tries to explain that it is actually the opposite, but this only deepens the innkeeper's misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the next scene takes us to Nina's carriage. As they travel, Nina and her guard begin talking about Kai. After mentioning how good it was to share a meal with him, Nina suddenly asks the female guard for her opinion of Kai. The guard answers honestly, saying that he is an extremely powerful warrior. Nina points out that this much is obvious. She is asking about his character. Hearing that, the guard apologizes and admits that she was under constant surveillance and did not have the luxury of observing anything else. Nina is shocked when she hears the word surveillance. The female guard confirms it, explaining that it is common for guards to let their vigilance slip while eating. Because of that, Kai was constantly observing her, as if he were testing her vigilance. She reminds Nina of the time she was kidnapped, and points out that the guards were the ones who made a serious mistake back then. She further explains that she did not even sense Kai's presence. That alone was a failure on her part. However, she made sure to listen to his entire conversation with Nina and the innkeeper. Because of this, she believes that Kai is on a completely different level from her. She even thinks that Kai was the one who found them, because he either had access to information about them, or possessed some kind of exceptional insight skill. The guard believes this was also evident during Kai's conversation with Nina about her invitation. Nina falls silent, because she understands exactly what the guard means without needing any further explanation. Naturally, it would be foolish to throw away an opportunity to meet the Holy Father and establish a connection, not to mention that Kai, as the person who saved Nina, already had an opportunity to meet him. Yet Kai specifically stated that he did not want the Holy Father to come because he wanted to avoid drawing attention. However, Nina and her sister visiting him would have the same effect and still draw attention to him. In other words, Nina concludes that his refusal was not simply an excuse. There must be something more behind it. The guard agrees. She explains that it is normal for people to be wary when dealing with those in positions of power, but that should not necessarily apply to Kai, judging from the way he interacted with Nina. Not to mention there are rumors that Kai is from Verthar. If that is true, then he should already have plenty of experience dealing with people of influence. After saying that, the carriage falls silent. Both girls arrive at the same conclusion. It turns out they believe Kai is trying to warn them that something is going to happen to the church. Nina thinks that only her parents can resolve the matter. The guard admits that she cannot say for certain, but since the warning is coming from Kai, it would be foolish not to pass the information along. With that, the guard asks for permission to speed up the carriage. Without hesitation, Nina gives the order, and so the carriage accelerates as they hurry toward the church. Later, at Nina's residence, Nina informs Maria about her meeting with Kai. Maria is surprised to hear that Kai somehow knows her and even mentioned her name. Hearing this, Maria immediately misunderstands the situation, thinking that our protagonist must be interested in her. Nina notices the misunderstanding from her sister's trembling voice and shaking legs. However, Maria explains that she never expected her presence to be the only condition Kai would accept for the reward. According to her, Kai is a member of Verthar, making it difficult for her to know what is going on in his mind. Nina, however, assures her that Kai is apparently a nice person, just like her. Hearing that, Maria thinks it might actually be okay to thank him in person. But it soon becomes clear that she is only joking when she asks her little sister if she wants to die. Anyway, Maria admits that acting like herself around Kai would be extremely difficult and wonders if she should simply put on an act. Hearing this, Nina suggests that her sister should just be herself. After thinking about it, Maria agrees to take her advice to heart. The two continue discussing Kai, and during their conversation, Maria eventually learns about his warning. She admits that she never expected Kai to catch wind of the new religion and sound the alarm before anything else happened. This makes Nina wonder how Kai is getting his information in the first place. Her sister thinks he must have his own sources. Regardless, they agree that this is something they cannot dig into too deeply. If they do, Kai might see them as enemies and cut ties with them before their relationship even has a chance to develop. Nonetheless, Maria jokingly remarks that Kai might be listening to their conversation right now. The two girls laugh about it, while Nina insists that such a thing is impossible. But in the very next second, both girls freeze. A sound comes from the ceiling. For a moment, they think it is the sound of footsteps. Seeing the expression on her little sister's face, Maria quickly assures her that it is probably just a bird or something. However, Nina points out with a trembling voice that the timing would be perfect if that were actually the case. Maria mirrors her sister's tone and jokes that our protagonist must simply be kind enough to provide them with extra security. Still, both girls reassure themselves that there are guards stationed at the door. There is no way anything could happen, or so they hope. Later the day finally arrives when Kai meets Nina and her sister. Meanwhile, Kai is sitting at his usual inn. The innkeeper cannot understand why someone in Kai's situation would choose to spend his time here. Kai, on the other hand, is wondering how he should handle the upcoming meeting. The Holy Church is coming to see him, although Nina's parents will not be joining them. Kai thinks to himself that he has already come up with the perfect strategy. His main concern is Nina's older sister, whom he will be meeting for the first time. Our protagonist plans to use Nina as a shield in case anything goes wrong. Still, when the innkeeper asks why he came to the inn, Kai simply explains that he was looking for someone to chat with. Seeing the man's confused expression, Kai explains that the Duke brought him a maid not long ago. During the entire time she has been with him, however, she has kept her distance and avoided him, making it difficult for him to have a proper conversation with her. Kai is left speechless when the innkeeper sympathizes with the maid instead of his situation. Regardless, he quickly changes the topic. Kai notices that the inn is more crowded than usual. Hearing this, the innkeeper explains that it is all thanks to Kai. Ever since Nina came here because of him, everyone has wanted to taste the food she ate. As a result, both the inn and its food have become surprisingly popular. Speaking of which, The innkeeper suddenly remembers something. It concerns the new religion that has suddenly appeared, and seems to be picking a fight with the Holy Church. The man explains that the group has apparently been preparing for a long time, and that its operation seems to be on a large scale. When he asks if Kai knows about it, Kai responds with another question, asking if he heard the news from his customers. The innkeeper explains that it is mostly just rumors spreading around. Some people claim that the archbishop and bishops are involved in wicked deeds, while others believe that everything is somehow connected to the Holy Church. The innkeeper suspects that the entire situation is meant to create internal conflict and weaken Nina's family's influence. Kai processes everything he hears. As expected, people in positions of power have their own difficulties. Once again, the innkeeper misunderstands Kai's reaction and assumes that this must already be old information to him because Kai probably knew about it beforehand. When Kai denies this, the man simply shrugs. At this point, he figures he should just go along with whatever Kai says. Nonetheless, Kai wants to know if the church can handle the situation. The innkeeper hopes so. From his perspective, the situation looks troublesome. Whatever suddenly appeared recently is already gaining momentum at an alarming rate. Kai, however, thinks the church should already have countermeasures. After all, they are one of the big three and should be capable of handling something like this. Hearing that, the innkeeper becomes suspicious. He asks if this means Kai has already made his move. Kai gives his usual denial, but the innkeeper does not believe him, even when Kai insists that he only learned about the situation moments ago. Regardless, Kai decides that he should question Nina about the matter further. Without wasting any more time, our protagonist gets up and leaves the inn. The next scene takes us to Kai's estate, where his maid asks her master if he is really planning to wear his armor when meeting Lady Nina and her sister. Kai tells her that he is doing so just in case something happens. After all, one can never be too careful. Hearing this, his maid remembers him once claiming that he is actually much stronger when fighting barehanded. Kai is immediately shocked and asks how she found out about that. In response, she calmly explains that she received the information from her lord, the Duke. She also assures him that he does not need to worry because the information is being kept confidential. Kai can only thank God that he is wearing his armor. At least she cannot see the shocked expression on his face. Anyway, the two begin discussing how they should treat Lady Nina and her sister when they arrive. His maid believes the best place to hold their private meeting is in his personal study. Kai agrees and tells her to lead the way when the time comes. She accepts the command, while Kai can only envy how dignified and composed she always looks compared to him. While they are on the topic, his maid wonders what Kai plans to do about Lady Nina and her sister's guards who will be accompanying them. Kai notes that it would be unpleasant to have a private conversation while being watched by guards. His maid agrees, so Kai suggests allowing the guards to roam freely around the mansion as they please. His suggestion catches her by surprise. When Kai asks if he said something wrong, she immediately replies in the negative, adding that if this is his desire, she has no problem with it. Hearing the way she says this, Kai can only hope that he has not done or said anything wrong. Just then, Kai asks for her opinion on sharing the snacks Karen gave him with the guards. Hearing that, his maid nervously asks if he is really asking for her personal opinion. Regardless, she tells him that she does not see any problem with it. With that, Kai tells her to go ahead, while casually asking how much the snacks and desserts cost. The moment he hears that they cost over 50,000 gold coins, Kai is obviously shocked. Curious, he then asks about the jewels he also received from Leafia. His maid admits that she does not know their exact price, but estimates that they are worth no less than 5 million. Assuming Kai is asking because he is dissatisfied with the gifts, she immediately becomes concerned. Kai quickly shakes his head. Inwardly, he can only think about how all these expensive gifts these people keep sending him are becoming a massive headache. Shifting the conversation, Kai suddenly asks if his maid wants anything. She does not understand what he means. Seeing her confusion, Kai awkwardly explains that he has received so many things from the Duke that it feels only natural for him to return the favor somehow. Hearing that, his maid calmly reminds him that she is an employee, so she is naturally fine with whatever arrangements and compensation the Duke has given her. However, Kai insists that she should not be so stiff around him. He tells her that she can simply tell him whatever she wants. Clearly, this is the first time she has experienced something like this. Nonetheless, she eventually reveals that she has a fondness for sweets. Hearing that, Kai promises to get some for her. With that, he takes his leave, reminding her to follow their planned arrangements. She nods, indicating that she understands his instructions. The moment Kai leaves, however, she thinks to herself that she must report everything to the Duke. Apparently, when Kai mentioned the word sharing, it meant something entirely different to her. It almost sounded like some kind of code word. Later, Nina and Maria finally arrive at Kai's estate. The two girls, along with their escort guards, are welcomed and invited into the mansion by Kai's maid. Kai is already waiting for them inside his study. The moment the maid leaves and closes the door behind her, Nina's guard from their previous meeting approaches her. The woman turns out to be the vice captain of the church's guards. She comments on the coincidence of running into her here, admitting that she never expected to see her again. Hearing this, Kai's maid explains that when the manor was transferred to Kai, she thought she would lose her position. Thankfully, Lord Kai was kind enough to allow her to remain. Hearing that, Nina's guard asks if this means Kai is a kind person. His maid nods. She knows that Kai could have easily requested someone more capable, yet he chose to let her stay. The vice captain assumes this means the maid's position has become more secure. However, the woman explains that she has not actually met Lord Kai face to face, so she cannot personally confirm that. The vice captain immediately realizes from her tone that the maid is deliberately withholding something. After all, they are clearly talking about Kai. Her reaction gives her away, causing the vice captain to chuckle to herself. The maid simply remarks that their conversation can only go around in circles. After all, her profession forbids her from prying into her master's personal affairs. The conversation continues, and the vice captain comments that it must be difficult being Kai's maid. The maid simply replies that the woman has no idea. She also reveals that there are apparently no guards stationed inside the mansion. In other words, Kai does not seem to care who enters his estate. The vice captain interprets this as proof that Kai is so strong that he does not need to worry about intruders. His maid agrees, thinking that her master possesses the strength to back up such confidence. Eventually, the vice captain asks whether the maid has gained any insight into Kai's intentions during the time she has spent around him. Hearing that, Kai's maid openly warns her that she cannot take responsibility for anything she says. She then explains her interpretation of Kai's earlier instructions. When Kai insisted that Nina and her sister's guards be allowed to roam freely around the mansion, he likely wanted them to tour the entire estate. However, the maid believes his true intention was for them to remain vigilant. After all, protection is extremely important. From the vice captain's perspective, however, it feels as though Kai does not completely trust them, especially considering the previous kidnapping incident. Hearing that, the maid shakes her head. She believes that is not the case at all. Instead, she thinks Kai is doing this to make them abandon the idea that he will always be there to step in and save them like he did previously. They cannot always expect to receive help from him. According to the maid, this is important for Lady Nina's growth and safety. The moment she explains this, the vice captain's expression changes. She suddenly realizes something. Before the maid can finish explaining, the vice captain suddenly thanks her and asks her to pass her gratitude on to her master, Kai. Meanwhile, Kai himself has absolutely no idea what is happening. Worse still, he feels like he is in serious trouble. He tried his best to be nice, yet Nina's older sister is staring at him as if he has said something incredibly rude or done something wrong. Eventually, Maria speaks. She asks how much Kai can see through. Kai obviously has no idea what she is talking about, and things only become more puzzling when she starts mentioning something about her future conduct. Because of this, Kai turns toward Nina as if silently asking her for help. Unfortunately, Nina simply tilts her head, making it clear that she wants nothing to do with the situation. At this point, the situation feels even more helpless than his previous encounter with the Duke. Kai can only sit there, practically wishing for someone to come and save him.